3i Atlas has all kinds of surprises. We've only seen a handful of blurry shots. That tail is kind of starting to form. There's the unusual chemical signatures. It's producing way more nickel than iron, and scientists don't really know why.
Something unlike anything we've ever seen is hurtling through the void. And it didn't come from this solar system. Known as 3i Atlas, it tears across space at over 130,000 miles per hour. And the readings astronomers are capturing defy every expectation.
The James Webb Space Telescope spotted a large object about 10 light years away moving toward Earth.
This isn't a simple icy comet or a long-forgotten fragment of a distant star. It's shedding streams of what it shouldn't, and hidden in the data, faint rhythmic pulses begin to emerge, signals that seem deliberate. Fascination quickly turned to disbelief, and disbelief to unease. Because if 3i Atlas isn't a rock, then what is it? Let's have a look at the details of the chemical patterns of the 3i Atlas that James Webb just detected that should not exist, and why scientists are panicking about it. A comet that doesn't belong here.
Right now, a fleet of NASA spacecraft are turning their attention to an unusual object through our solar system.
When 3i Atlas finally slipped out from behind the sun in late 2025, astronomers expected the usual. A bright scrap of ice, a nice photo opportunity, and maybe a few new data points for comet fans. Instead, the moment it re-entered the winter sky, telescopes around the world, professional and amateur, swung toward it like iron filings to a magnet. The comet was back and glowing. Digitally enhanced smart telescopes, those sleek little AI-guided cylinders, locked onto its position with embarrassing ease. Within hours, social feeds filled with crisp, slow spiral images of the interstellar visitor, captions ranging from "beautiful" to "why does it look like that?" But beneath the online excitement, the people who had been watching the comet before it reappeared, before it glowed for the public, were anything but calm.
This is one giant star that's gravitationally bound that are really far along in their evolution and expelling a ton of mass.
For months, James Webb had been staring straight through the sun's glare with its infrared vision, quietly collecting data that NASA analysts described very delicately as non-standard. That was the polite version. The internal version was closer to, what on earth are we looking at? The first big hint dropped in a Smithsonian feature, an attempt to decode the comet's chemical fingerprint. Their writers, usually steady-handed and cautious, sounded more like science fiction novelists trying not to panic on paper. They emphasized what researchers were whispering behind closed doors. This wasn't just interstellar, it might be extragalactic, a simple way of saying that the 3i Atlas may have been born far beyond the Milky Way, in a star system we cannot map, catalog, or even guess at. It has been traveling through the void for millions, possibly billions of years, a cosmic bottle tossed across the ocean of space. NASA's own early models placed its origin somewhere in the direction of Sagittarius, inconveniently aligned with the turbulent, dust-choked region near the galactic center. That area is basically a privacy screen for cosmic objects. Even with our best instruments, it's like trying to trace a bullet fired through a sandstorm. Still, one thing was clear. Something kicked this comet out of its home with tremendous force. A collapsing binary star, a rogue gas giant, a gravitational near-miss with something we don't yet have a name for? Whatever launched it hard.
Its movement should be governed by the laws of physics, and physics says that passing by the sun would have slowed it down.
When the James Webb team released their first full-spectrum analysis, every planetary scientist felt a jolt of confusion before the dread kicked in. 8 parts carbon dioxide to 1 part water, not 8%, not slightly elevated. For reference, normal comets in our solar system hold maybe 4% carbon dioxide. You'd need to deliberately engineer a comet to hit those kinds of ratios, or form it in a place so cold, so chemically extreme, that water barely exists at all. High carbon dioxide implies the comet formed in extraordinarily frigid conditions. The almost total lack of water implies it didn't form near any typical ice line. Together, these point to a star system with elemental ratios unlike any we've seen. At first, everyone assumed it was a glitch. Astronomy is famous for glitchy mornings. Maybe the spectrograph misread a line. Maybe Webb had picked up a background star. Maybe someone forgot to carry a digit in the calibration software. But then Hubble confirmed the ratio. And Gemini South, and TD Observatory. 3 independent hemispheres, same impossible result. That's when the jokes drained out of every conference room.
I think this is a wonderful topic. Many other scientists who are just working on the details of what it takes to make us healthy.
Normal comets vent gas in chaotic little bursts, like frozen geysers sputtering as sunlight warms different patches of ice. The jets flicker, fade, reappear, random, and messy. 3I Atlas didn't do random. Its main jet stayed on, for hours at a time, steady, balanced, almost regulated. Then astronomers noticed the second tail. One tail pointed away from the sun, pushed by solar radiation as expected. The other, astonishingly, pointed toward the sun. That shouldn't happen, ever. Some physicists threw out benign explanations. Could be magnetic interference, or charged carbon dioxide ions reacting with solar plasma. Others just stared at the data, silently counting the career consequences of saying what they were thinking. Because if sunlight pushes gas away, how was gas pushing back? It looked less like a natural reaction and more like an exchange, some kind of interaction with the solar wind that didn't obey the usual rules. That was the moment researchers started whispering the question no one wanted on record. Is this thing steering? When NASA's Sphere-X mission finally weighed in, the mystery didn't clear. It deepened. Its data revealed an absurd mix: vast plumes of vaporized carbon dioxide, faint whispers of ancient long-buried water, and chemical ratios that matched neither distant solar system comets nor even 2I Borisov, the carbon champion of interstellar visitors.
The plume of gas around it is mostly carbon dioxide, 95% by mass, based on the Webb telescope data.
Dr. Carrie Lissa of Johns Hopkins tried to soften the blow. The proportions are what make it fascinating, which simply means our astrophysical rulebook has absolutely no page for this. Comets born close to their stars should lose their carbon dioxide early. Comets born far out should keep both carbon dioxide and water.
Observing this rare comet that had water vapor in it.
3I Atlas? It somehow breaks both rules at once, like it never agreed to play by ours in the first place. Some researchers proposed it might be a fragment of a carbon planet, yes, an actual diamond world, shattered and hurled into space. Others suggested it might be the frozen exhaust of an atmosphere escaping a dying star.
How amazing is it that we humans have a word for something that literally flies between stars, and so far...
And a small but growing group wondered whether those eerily stable carbon dioxide jets were deliberate, designed to maintain orientation, spin, or trajectory. If that's true, we're not looking at a visitor. We're looking at a fossil older than Earth itself. But chemical imbalance was only the beginning, because when James Webb tuned its spectrographs deeper, the comet revealed a missing ingredient no object in the universe has ever lacked. The case of the missing iron. Imagine peering into deep space and catching a comet doing something so bizarre it makes veteran astronomers rub their eyes and recheck their instruments. That was the scene when 3I Atlas swung into view and James Webb spotted a signature that should not exist. Bright nickel vapor streaming from its coma, yet not a trace, not a whisper of iron. To most people, that sounds like a minor technical hiccup. To scientists, it felt like finding a heartbeat with no pulse or a footprint with no foot. Nickel and iron simply do not appear alone. They are cosmic siblings, fused together in the hellish cores of dying stars, born under the same nuclear pressures, and locked into nearly identical vaporization points. Their partnership is considered one of astrophysics' few unbreakable rules. And yet, there 3I Atlas was, shattering that rule in plain sight. What made the moment even stranger was the consistency. James Webb saw nickel without iron. Hawaii's telescopes confirmed it. Chile's Very Large Telescope confirmed it. Hubble chimed in with the same verdict. The universe, it seemed, was insisting on the impossible. Panic, the quiet scientific kind, rolled through labs worldwide. Teams didn't just double-check their instruments, they tore their setups apart and rebuilt them. Calibration files were reloaded. Detector sensitivities were recalculated. Atmospheric interference models were rerun. Spectral algorithms were inspected line by line, and every time the answer returned unchanged.
3I Atlas. It does give scientists a rare chance to study something from beyond our solar system.
Nickel present, iron absent. That's when the theorizing began. Some proposed that ultra-fragile nickel carbonyl compounds might be responsible, delicate molecules that can liberate nickel vapor under specific conditions. But there was a catch. These compounds survive only in frigid, shadowy regions of interstellar space. Near the Sun, they should fall apart instantly. Yet, 3I Atlas was venting nickel as if those compounds were thriving. Others suggested the comet might have formed in an exotic astrophysical environment where iron fusion failed to complete, an almost mythical kind of star, the cosmic equivalent of a 1 in a trillion glitch. And in the more speculative corners of the community, whispers surfaced about pregalactic remnants, matter older than the Milky Way, forged before galaxies settled into their familiar rhythms. Each explanation offered a spark of possibility, yet everyone collapsed under closer scrutiny. Temperatures didn't match, radiation levels didn't match, chemical survivability didn't match. The puzzle only got stranger, and that's when another phase of fear began anew after the carbon dioxide revelation had already set everyone on edge. Scientists aren't afraid of the unknown, they thrive on it.
How amazing is it that we humans have a word for something that literally flies between stars, and so far...
What unsettles them is the impossible. The violation of a rule so universal it's baked into models of stellar evolution, planetary formation, and cosmic chemistry. If nickel can exist without iron, then the universe has been lying to us, or withholding something fundamental. The truly unnerving idea, the one no one wanted to say out loud, was whispered in private. What if the iron wasn't missing naturally? What if it had been removed? On Earth, selective removal of metal is an industrial process. Intentional, precise, engineered. Seeing something similar on a comet hints at a kind of purpose, or at least a mechanism, that doesn't belong to blind nature.
It's easier for me to think this is a new kind of object that requires way more study than we've given it thus far.
Even Dr. Daryl Z. Seligman tried to keep his language clinical when the findings went public. We've detected glowing nickel vapor at a distance far too cold for metals to vaporize. It's extraordinary. It changes how we understand material chemistry beyond our solar system. But the subtext was clear. This wasn't just unexpected. It broke the rules. 3I Atlas wasn't behaving like a passive chunk of cosmic debris. It was acting like something with a history, something shaped, altered, or at the very least forged under conditions we've never seen before. And just when astronomers thought the mystery had stretched as far as it could go, James Webb looked again, and the chemistry collapsed into something even stranger. The gravitational whispers. At first, it was nothing more than a few suspicious numbers buried deep inside orbital logs. Tiny positional errors so small they looked like rounding mistakes. But space doesn't make the same mistake over and over. And soon, those micro-shifts began piling up across observatories worldwide. Asteroids were drifting. Not dramatically, not enough to trigger public alerts, but enough for scientists to frown at their screens and mutter, "That shouldn't be happening." The weird part wasn't the drift itself, it was the pattern. Every displaced asteroid, without exception, had skimmed past 3I Atlas in the weeks before its orbit went sideways.
We've got some fresh images of 3I Atlas, a third ever interstellar object observed from Earth.
The same comet already bending chemistry and throwing thermodynamics out the window was now brushing its fingers across celestial bodies and nudging them off course by whisper-thin margins. Coincidence? The universe isn't that generous with coincidences. Within days, data logs from Chile, Hawaii, and South Africa began lining up like puzzle pieces. And the picture they formed was unsettling. Whatever force was altering those asteroid paths wasn't random. It wasn't chaotic. It was consistent, deliberate even. Someone at the European Space Agency coined the term gravitational whispering, partly as a joke, partly because no one had anything better. And the phrase stuck. After all, that's exactly what it looked like. Space itself humming quietly around the interstellar visitor, just enough to nudge massive rocks like they weighed nothing at all. But the more scientists studied it, the less poetic and more terrifying the phenomenon became. Gravity is the one force in the universe that refuses to do anything subtle. It's either on or it's off, strong or weak. But it doesn't whisper, and it certainly doesn't target objects like it's choosing them from a menu. Every model failed. Solar wind pressure, too weak. Micrometeorite collisions, inconsistent. Cometary outgassing. The plumes didn't match the drift orientation. Hidden mass near the comet, nothing detectable. Dark matter clumps, wrong scale. Variable mass body, flatly impossible. Gravitational lensing. The geometry was all wrong. Nature, as far as physics was concerned, couldn't do this. And then came the discovery that unseated everyone. The drifting asteroids weren't just sliding off their predicted tracks. Their paths curved ever so slightly toward 3I Atlas before continuing on, as if something near the comet was tugging at them and then letting go.
The Atlas Survey Telescope in Chile first reported observations of the comet on July 1st, 2025, to the minor planet.
Not enough to cause danger, just enough to announce itself. This wasn't passive gravity, this felt like interaction. James Webb, because it apparently wanted to escalate the chaos, stepped in with another curveball. Using its mid-infrared instrument, James Webb measured the object's thermal emissions as it drifted away from the sun. Common sense says a comet should cool after passing perihelion. 3I Atlas responded by heating up. Not a chaotic spike, not a solar flare misread, but a steady, rhythmic internal warmth, pulsing like a mechanical heartbeat. One cycle every 51.2 minutes, then suddenly switching to 17.07 minutes, clean and crisp as if someone had changed a setting. Nobody had a clue what it meant, until a graduate student in South Africa overlaid the thermal pulses with the gravitational disturbances. The timings matched perfectly. Heat emission, space-time distortion, heat emission, space-time distortion. The comet had a rhythm, like a device running through modes. The room went silent. By now, space agencies were moving with the quiet precision of people who know exactly how much the public should not know. NASA redirected Swift. SphereX reshuffled observation windows. European observatories received confidential instructions. Emails started arriving stamped with layers of classification. Not because 3I Atlas was dangerous, because nobody could yet decide if it was natural. Behind the scenes, old theories resurfaced, the kind scribbled in the margins of 1960s think tanks. Von Neumann probes, self-replicating robotic scouts, machines built to wander star to star, mapping gravitational fields, sampling chemistry.
So it wouldn't take much for us to accelerate nanomolecules to very, very fast velocities,
leaving behind messages encoded not in radio waves but in physics itself. Radio signals fade, spectral signatures do not. A comet-shaped probe broadcasting information through heat pulses, gravitational nudges, and chemical fingerprints. It sounded insane, but it also explained everything. Maybe 3I Atlas wasn't sending a message at all. Maybe it was the message. A physical letter traveling through interstellar space for 1 billion years, waiting for a species capable of reading subtle distortions in space-time. And then, right when the theory began gaining traction, the universe played its creepiest card yet. The gravitational whispers, once perfectly steady, began to falter. They weakened, stuttered. Then, all of a sudden, they all stopped all at once. Every monitor froze. Every analysis is flatlined. The cosmos held its breath, and in the silence that followed, sensors across Earth picked up something faint, a tiny reflection, rhythmic and deliberate, timed exactly to the last gravitational pulse, as if 3I Atlas had paused and was waiting for an answer. But the universe wasn't done whispering. The lunar echo. For over a decade, NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter had been gliding around the moon on autopilot, dutifully mapping craters, tracking radiation levels, and listening to the kind of cosmic background noise no one pays attention to.
The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, launched in 2009, has been orbiting the moon now for over 8 years.
Then, on an otherwise ordinary orbit, its instruments snagged something impossible, an electromagnetic pulse bouncing off the moon's shadowed far side.
The laser pulse that goes out is shaped rather like a pulse, a Gaussian curve.
Not interference, not static, a deliberate pulse, and its frequency pattern wasn't just familiar, it was nearly identical to the metallic emissions streaming from 3I Atlas. In essence, the moon hadn't reflected the signal, it had answered it. At first, the scientific community's reaction was a collective, exhausted sigh. Another anomaly, another coincidence in a month already overflowing with them. But the moment analysts replayed the waveform, that sigh turned into a quiet, unnerving silence. The signal wasn't merely bouncing, it was resonating, as though something on, or beneath, the lunar crust had recognized the Atlas signature and responded in kind. Two theories sprang up almost instantly, each more unsettling than the last. One camp argued the object's emission reached the moon and shook something dormant awake, some ancient mechanism or buried structure that had been sleeping beneath the regolith for millions of years. The second camp took an even darker route. Maybe whatever was beneath the lunar surface wasn't dormant at all. Maybe it had been waiting. Either way, the idea landed like a jolt through every observatory on Earth. If the second theory was correct, then the moon, a place humanity had always considered dead and predictable, wasn't just a satellite. It was wired. It was listening. And maybe, just maybe, 3I Atlas wasn't discovering Earth at all, but reconnecting with something already here. Behind closed doors, classified discussions grew heated. Leaked fragments hinted that the resonance pattern didn't just look engineered, it aligned mathematically with communication systems designed by intelligent species. That alone was enough to send agencies into silent panic. Natural resonance could be argued. Instrument glitch could be defended. But engineered symmetry, that was hard to wave away. Then, just as speculation reached a boiling point, 3I Atlas went silent. Its emissions, those steady metallic signatures that had become the heartbeat of every astronomer's week, cut off. No heat spikes, no nickel vapor, no detectable signal of any kind.
So here scientists did detect numerous nickel lines, but the iron emissions remained undetected.
The cosmic chatter stopped cold, and the timing was too perfect to ignore, exactly 1 hour after the lunar echo. It was almost theatrical, as if Atlas had called, the moon had replied, and now the conversation had ended. This silence sent researchers scrambling back through weeks of data with advanced decomposition AIs, peeling away layers of signal structure the way one might reveal hidden ink beneath old parchment. That's when the deeper mystery emerged. Microbursts, tiny signal packets woven into the emission so subtly they had gone unnoticed. But once extracted and mapped, they formed a repeating, deliberate pattern. Not noise, not chemical byproducts, code. 3I Atlas hadn't been leaking random metallic emissions. It had been transmitting information in a format so advanced humanity only recognized it after it ended. And the obvious question followed like a shadow. Who was the message for? Cross-referencing the microbursts with unrelated cosmic data deepened the mystery. One match stood out sharply: the internal structure of FRB 202011124A. An intense distant radio burst from a galaxy 400 million light-years away mirrored the same modulation signatures. It wasn't identical by accident. It was the same architecture, the same handwriting. Two possibilities emerged. Either this was some universal communication standard, or both signals belonged to the same vast ancient network. Suddenly, the term alien artifact didn't sound sensational anymore. It sounded increasingly plausible.
From images, we also saw that this object is active, which means that around the nucleus there is some coma, which is an indication that this object is in fact a comet.
3I Atlas wasn't a lost traveler. It was a node, a relay, a device in an interstellar mesh network so large it made our planet feel like a barely remembered outpost. Then the next anomaly hit. During a routine calibration, the James Webb Space Telescope noticed a distortion around Atlas. At first, the team whispered gravitational lensing, but the numbers refused to cooperate. The object simply didn't have the mass to bend light like that. It wasn't gravity, it was energy, a pulsing field that warped starlight in lockstep with the microburst frequencies hidden inside the earlier emissions. It wasn't merely transmitting, it was responding, adjusting itself as if aware of observation. And then, for a moment that lasted less than a heartbeat, the cosmos blinked. Every major observatory tracking the object went dark simultaneously. Data feeds cut. Telemetry vanished. Satellites lost lock. It was as though someone or something had flicked off the universe. When visibility returned, everything seemed normal until analysts spotted the final chilling detail. 3I Atlas had moved, not drifting, not tumbling. A deliberate surgical change, 0.008 degrees.
We get, the better we can measure the position of this object as it travels through the solar system and it moves.
Small enough to slip past casual observation, yet precise enough to make every scientist in the room go cold. This wasn't debris, this wasn't chance, this was maneuvering, which meant the object didn't just know it was being watched, it understood how we were watching and shifted in the one direction that exploited our blind spots. Some say it fled. Some say it hid. Others think it moved toward whatever answered from inside the moon. Because if 3I Atlas truly was awake, then what happened next? The blackout, the movement, the silence, wasn't random at all. It was the beginning of a conversation humanity wasn't supposed to hear. The moment Atlas woke up, it began as a glitch. At least that's what the agencies insisted on calling it.
and we have a better idea of the orbit of this object, this might be a brand new, unknown, potentially hazardous asteroid.
A harmless hiccup, a momentary dropout. But anyone who lived through those 37 seconds knows it felt like more than a hiccup. It felt like the sky itself paused. Across the planet, observatories lost their vision. Radio telescopes froze mid-scan. Deep space radars crashed so hard they rebooted themselves. Satellites stopped whispering back to mission control. Every data feed flatlined at the same second, as if some invisible hand had pressed mute on the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Then, just as abruptly, everything returned. Screens flickering back to life, instruments recalibrating, engineers blinking at each other in confused silence. No storm, no solar flare, no good explanation. And then came the leak. An anonymous user, no name, no credentials, no history, dropped a document onto a small encrypted forum used by astrophysics students and bored grad school researchers.
It would constrain the size of the object. Just last week, I submitted a paper for publication.
The file was stamped with a bright red warning, confidential, Lagrange Monitoring Division. European Space Agency inside was a report describing what happened during those lost 37 seconds. The one thing no public agency dared mention. While Earth went dark, something lit up. Military-grade infrared satellites aimed at the Lagrange Point region recorded a burst of heat coming directly from 3I Atlas. Not a flare, not an eruption, a pattern, a hexagon, 6 edges, 6 angles, perfectly proportional, glowing in the infrared like a brand pressed into the void. For 1.3 seconds, the object radiated heat in a geometric signature so clean it looked artificial. Comets simply don't behave like that. Their vents are chaotic, their jets messy and unpredictable, more like shaken soda than designed machinery. But this looked engineered. Someone at ESA scribbled a note in the margin of the report. Just 3 words: non-random thermal emission. Those words spread through scientific circles like a pulse of cold water, because symmetry meant control, and control meant intent, and intent meant something out there was not just moving, it was active. That's when other anomalies began to surface. Almost immediately after the thermal bloom, magnetometers orbiting Earth detected faint ripples in the planet's magnetic field. The Van Allen belts, the radiation shields wrapped around Earth, shivered as if something had brushed against them. The distortion wasn't large, but it was precise, rhythmic, and perfectly synchronized with the recorded hexagonal emission. Solar activity? None. Instrumentation fault? All devices reported the same reading. Coincidence? Scientists dislike that word. Then the ground chimed in. Seismic sensors near the Indian Ocean, in an area with no tectonic activity, detected a bizarre ultra-low frequency vibration. Not a quake, not a detonation, a pulse. It repeated every 12 minutes, rising upward through the crust like a whisper aimed at the sky. Hydrophones in the area heard nothing. No rumble, no sound, just energy. Clean, focused, directional. It was so strange that analysts labeled it the soundless impact. Some suggested the Earth was resonating from whatever Atlas had triggered. Others proposed something far more unnerving. Perhaps the vibration wasn't produced by Earth at all. Perhaps it was a signal, a message fired upward through the planet's own body to reach orbit. Then the entire situation took an even more disturbing turn. A private aerospace company reported that one of its CubeSats went haywire mid-orbit. The tiny satellite dropped in temperature by 40 degrees in under a minute, lost orientation, and then inexplicably began transmitting a data packet it had never been programmed to send. Engineers assumed corruption until they saw the waveform. It matched the microburst pattern hidden inside 3I Atlas's earlier emissions. The CubeSat wasn't replaying old data, it was echoing the object, a live transmission, as if it had absorbed the signal and repeated it automatically, like a relay node brought online by something old and patient. That changed everything. If Atlas could seed a relay, then it wasn't just communicating, it was replicating.
This is the trajectory right here. It's kind of close to Mars, but not really, but it's still pretty far away from Earth.
A machine, a messenger, a system. And then came the message. At 1,420 megahertz, the famous hydrogen line, the universal SETI hello frequency, stations across the globe picked up a faint pulse, 6 bursts. a pause. 6 more, a pause. Then the sequence repeated 3 times before fading into static. Binary translation gave a row of numbers, 8, 13, 8, 5, 13, 8. What looked like a dead end finally cracked open when someone pushed the numbers through an alphanumeric cipher. 8 becoming H, 13 becoming M, 8 returning to H, then 5 to E, 13 to M, 8 again to H, leaving behind the cryptic string him.
From images, we also saw that this object is active, which is an indication that this object is in fact a comet.
It read like static, nothing but noise, until a researcher aligned it with the rhythm of the pulses themselves. The symmetry snapped into place, the letters rotated into order, and a message surfaced from the chaos. Observe, prepare, understand. The gate awaits. Scientists dismissed it as a prank, right up until SETI confirmed the pulses originated from 15,000 kilometers above Earth. Not from the ground, not from a satellite, not from any known transmitter. Something up there sent the message. And whatever sent it did so on the one frequency humanity has been listening to for 70 years. By this point, the mood in every major space agency had shifted from academic curiosity to the kind of quiet, tight-lipped panic people carry when they've seen something they wish they hadn't. Because if you zoom out, the pattern becomes obvious. 3I Atlas flares.
There's a mysterious interstellar object hurtling towards our solar system, exciting scientists across the globe.
Earth's magnetosphere twitches. The planet hums. A CubeSat activates. A message arrives. Not random events, but steps. Not anomalies, but a sequence. A system booting up. Something ancient. Something deliberate. Something that had been waiting for the right trigger. And now that trigger has been pulled. How 3I Atlas became a global obsession. The moment 3I Atlas drifted into public view, it didn't just enter the sky, it entered culture. What began as another distant interstellar visitor quickly snowballed into a worldwide spectacle, pulling scientists, celebrities, TikTok creators, amateur astronomers, and late-night doom-scrollers into the same strange conversation. Even NASA couldn't escape the whirlwind. Blurry early images sparked accusations of cover-ups, theories of hidden photos, and a very modern kind of cosmic paranoia fueled by a government shutdown that left the public waiting just long enough for speculation to sprint several laps ahead of facts. Then came Elon Musk. During a laid-back but unnervingly candid appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, he admitted that 3I Atlas's trajectory might involve forces beyond simple gravity. He didn't claim it was artificial, but he didn't rule it out either. Just hovered in that unsettling Musk-esque gray zone where every possibility feels like it carries a half-life.
Wow, it left a giant nickel-rich deposit?
Yeah, that's it's coming. Those are from impacts. You definitely didn't want to be there at the time because anything would have been obliterated.
And when he added that an impact from an object this size could erase a continent, maybe worse, the internet seized on it instantly. One casual sentence became fuel for 1,000 crisis theory threads. Meanwhile, astrophysicist Avi Loeb approached the situation with the kind of scientific mischief only he can pull off. Years earlier, he had joked that if alien tech ever slipped into the solar system, the first people to notice wouldn't be NASA. It'd be someone on Reddit with a telescope and too much caffeine. Now that 3I Atlas had arrived, that joke suddenly felt like a prophecy. Loeb introduced something new, the Loeb scale, a tongue-in-cheek but strangely useful ranking system measuring how natural versus technological an interstellar object might be.
Could be technological or it's just natural. Hopefully we'll know more within the coming days.
0 meant a boring space rock. 10 meant a smoking gun alien artifact. Loeb placed 3I Atlas at a bold 6. And even that, he warned, was subject to change. But the line that detonated across social media was his estimate that there was a 30 to 40% chance the object wasn't fully natural. Some called it hype, some called it genius, but everyone clicked. Within hours, the internet erupted. Reddit threads stretched into the thousands of comments as users built spreadsheets, shared spectral data, and argued about orbital mechanics at 4 in the morning. TikTok flooded with neon-soaked videos set to synthwave, the comet that looks back. Discord servers morphed into citizen science hubs where hobbyists coordinated observations with the kind of efficiency normally reserved for professional research teams. YouTube channels began streaming live anomaly tracking, while meme pages alternated between panic and cosmic comedy. For the first time in history, crowd astronomy wasn't a quirky side project. It was a global, decentralized scientific engine, one capable of spotting anomalies before institutions could finish writing their press releases. And there were anomalies. 3i Atlas behaved like it had skipped the chapter in the Cosmic Physics Handbook about how comets are supposed to work. Its tail pointed toward the sun, the exact opposite of how solar wind should shape it. Its chemistry read like a cosmic puzzle written in the wrong language. 8 times more carbon dioxide than water vapor, metallic nickel vapor without iron, and dust clouds that brightened in ways no one could model convincingly. Its trajectory fluctuated just enough to raise eyebrows, tiny deviations, but deviations nonetheless, almost like internal venting or propulsion, or something we simply don't have names for yet. Even AI systems noticed before humans did, flagging the object as non-standard days before astronomers could verify the numbers manually. The machines were paying attention, and the institutions were too, quietly. NASA and ESA gave calm statements to the public, but behind the curtain, observation schedules were rewritten, satellite instruments retasked, and interagency data channels went mysteriously silent. No one shouted cover-up, but in science, sudden quiet can be louder than a press conference. What truly ignited the suspense, though, was the sheer scale of this thing. At 5 to 11 kilometers wide, 3i Atlas dwarfed both Oumuamua and Borisov. It was fast, massive, unpredictable, and utterly foreign. Every major observatory took a turn. James Webb detected unusual metallic signatures, Hubble recorded shifting reflectivity across its surface, and ground-based giants like VLT and Gemini South stacked hour after hour of data. Even Mars orbiters were redirected to monitor magnetic and solar wind interactions. Everything we gathered only deepened the mystery. Meanwhile, the public conversation went nuclear. Podcasts titled The Alien Iceberg dominated trending lists. TikTok creators called Atlas the universe's read receipt.
We have new images of 3i Atlas, the giant comet that came from another solar system.
Reddit users built open-source tools to track brightness fluctuations and claimed they found rhythmic patterns NASA hadn't published. Some insisted deliberate, others insisted it's coincidental, but no one stopped watching. Suddenly, astronomy felt communal again. Not reserved for institutions, but shared across bedrooms, backyards, and makeshift telescope rigs. It wasn't conspiracy thinking that drove it. It was curiosity amplified by millions of connected minds all squinting at the same icy wanderer. And when the 3i Atlas drifted toward its fiery swing around the sun, anticipation crackled everywhere. Some comets flare, some break apart, some do the cosmic equivalent of shrugging and continue on their way. But this one has refused to behave from the start. Will it fracture, revealing hidden layers of metal and exotic dust? Will it flare with materials never recorded in our catalogs? Will it twist its tail again, or shed fragments, or glow with some new chemical signature that rewrites our understanding of interstellar matter?
This comet's really cool because it does have that tail from the sun's radiation blasting it, but it also has a forward-facing tail.
Because for all our models and instruments, no one can yet explain why its tail points the wrong way, why its chemistry looks engineered, or why its path refuses to lie still. 3i Atlas is a mirror, dangling in the void, reflecting our hopes, our fears, and that ancient, unanswerable question, are we really alone? And as it glides past Mars, pulling its secrets further into the dark, more people than ever are asking that same question out loud. Maybe that's the real legacy of 3i Atlas. Not what it is, but what it awakened in us. Please click the cards on the screen now for more amazing videos. Thanks for watching.